Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, at Sir Lucian Gaming. Good morning, sir. Say hello.
Good morning, everybody. I bet today we got all of the problems solved, and it's a perfect stream.
Perfect stream.
That's my prediction. Perfect stream.
I'm sure we'll find out as
We'll be told soon.
You'll start talking soon on the delay stream. So hey, we're good. Hey, this is fantastic.
Professionals.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, we're this is our 222nd episode. It's all twos today, and we are live. Yes, 100% live.
Yes.
This is you'll see if it's ever a premiere or something, but yeah, we're good. We're a Dungeons and Dragons talk show. We record Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. If you are interested in catching us live on YouTube or Twitch, or there's a podcast you can check out. All of those fun things. We've been working. We've been busy, and so I've been busy. I was gone out of the state, so. For those of you who didn't know, I went to Seattle last week as a mini vacation, and that is the last bit of travel I'm doing. Probably until 2023 rolls around. So I should be good for these morning shows. We'll see.
Here on out. Yeah. Well, there's not much of 2022 left, so.
It is. Thank you so much, Moa Peach, for the donation. I very much appreciate it. It is a birthday month for me, which I'm very excited for. And I am going to be 40 years old this October. That is big for Jordans. But I'm very excited. Still young at heart, still playing games, making puns. Having my best Jordan life, you know. So it's going to be awesome. It's not till the 24th, so I still have... Well, the 22nd is our next show, and that's the one where I'll probably be super birthday happy. Because on the 21st, we're going to go see Black Adam. Birthday movie go with friends, which I was a big fan of the Shazam movie. I'm a big fan of Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So, yeah.
And they're making another Shazam movie, which
I know.
Didn't see it too.
I know. I'm so excited. It's going to be great. I'm very excited.
I love that actor too. I mean, just he was in
great.
That show way back in the day where he was they turned him into a spy, but he worked at like a Best Buy kind of place. That's not what the name of it was, but what's the name of that?
I don't remember.
Shadow remember what he's most known for, the guy that plays Shazam. But I loved it because it was like that. It was like a Best Buy tech who turned into a super spy show.
Yeah.
It was all comedy and fun, and it was really good.
What is going on in the world of D&D news? I know there's one thing that I have not. I tested streams all morning, so I am way behind.
Notes.
But
so Jordan did not do his homework. So it was kind of a little bit slow while we were gone, and even this past week, because I think they released so much 1D&D test material. Most of the releases for Dungeons and Dragons are out at this point. The only thing I think we're waiting on is Shadow of the Dragon Queen, which is the Dragonlance book for December 6th. Mm-hmm. And that's the last one this year, I believe, unless I'm missing something, until we get into next year's announcements and things that they had announced. But we didn't get like firm dates for those. They just said like spring or summer or fall, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So I don't know when we'll start hearing those dates, but pretty soon. So really, we have Dragonlance to bring out the year.
Yeah, that's coming at the end. Warriors of Kryn. No, that's Warriors of Kryn is different from the Dragonlance.
That's the game.
That's the battle game. Okay.
Yeah, Shadow of the Dragon Queen is the book, and then Warriors of Kryn is the game. I think they come out at the same time, but I didn't necessarily see that, so I could be wrong on that. It was a co-op battle game that you can play to resolve big battles, which I guess they expect maybe that you might do in this adventure, Shadow of the Dragon Queen. I think it's interesting because I think this would be the Dragonlance book has to have already been written probably before the 1D&D stuff, so I don't imagine we will see a lot of the new format. I think this might be the last of the old format books, maybe the last of the old kind of what 5e was before the big changes into what we turn into. I don't think we're going to see like 5.5 rules in here or 6, whatever we're going to end up calling.
Yeah, I wonder if, I wonder if, yeah, that's a whole other discussion, if one D&D is going to stick. But that was also the playtest. D&D Next was the playtest name, and then we kind of they just wanted us to call it Dungeons & Dragons, but we ended up calling it 5th edition because it was a very different edition. But, you know, with Strixhaven having, like, Strixhaven came out and it had those weird feats that were at higher levels, I think. Like, you could only take this feat when you were 4th level. And I was looking at the playtest material a couple days ago, and it also has, like, you can't take this feat unless you're of a certain level or a certain class, kind of a thing like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to see another drop of something in the Dragonlance book that will either allude back to playtest material for 1D&D or will be the precursor. Like, that book will come out and then the next day we'll get a new 1D&D drop that implements something that's in Dragonlance. Because they're testing it with these setting books, I feel. Like, new things, you know. And they've always kind of done that. Like, they did the piety system for Theros, and I think Ravnica and Eberron had the group patron.
Patron stuff.
Yeah, and so they're kind of like working with, like, hey, if you want to utilize this new thing, we'll make it setting specific in some way. Spelljammer, I don't really know. I suppose it was supposed to have ship combat, but it kind of fell through. So,
yeah, I don't know where they introduced a bunch of new races, which was nice, which I liked. But yeah, really not really brand new mechanics. I guess a few, but not a lot. But I do think you're right. I think the setting books is where they try some new mechanic stuff, like optional rule kind of stuff, where you can say, hey, try this out. If you like it, great. If
and I think
don't, that's
I
fine.
100% believe there will be optional rules in the Dragonlance book because that's been their track record for all the others. But if that will actually translate into we're secretly testing 1D&D, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. But I'm curious about this board game though. So I'm curious.
The art has me intrigued. The idea that there's a board game tied in has me a little bit intrigued. I still haven't been super onto the Dragonlance thing. I guess I just got out of it so long ago. Like, I remember liking it originally, but that's like 90s time, and then just kind of fell out of it and loved Forgotten Realms just so much more. Forgotten Realms to me was just a more fun, more expansive, there's more mystery of what's going on in the world. There's more unknown. And so I gravitated towards that once I found that one over Dragonlance, which feels more of like Dragonlance always felt to me like reading a history book. Like, you're reading what's happened and you're reading about that. And but it's like set in it's almost like Lord of the Rings in a way. Like, if you're going to play a role-playing game of Lord of the Rings, it's hard to imagine the unexplored pieces and the things because your mind is fully into what the stories were, what the movies were, what Tolkien told us this world is. You don't think about the other stuff. But like Forgotten Realms, to me, I never said, oh, well, Ed Greenwood hasn't described this place yet. I don't know what it is. That never comes across to me. Like, Forgotten Realms is that perfect place that I feel like I can build my own. There are mysteries out there that are unknown, and it's not just a history book that we're using to reference. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's why I like settings when they're made for a game rather than adapting a story. Like, I understand you love Lord of the Rings and all this stuff, and you're like, I want to do this, this, and this. But because it's a novel that has a beginning, middle, and end, it's difficult for me to be like, well, what kind of story do I want to tell around here? And maybe Lord of the Rings is the perfect example because, like, a lot of people love Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. And I know that world very well. I still don't see myself wanting to run a game there because it's always like, well, we're gonna, like, the ring has happened, or maybe it's after the ring. I don't know. You would have to do something interesting where you're like, I'm gonna make it my own by saying we're gonna go to this weird remote region and have a different problem than Sauron, but Sauron's in the background, or we're gonna go to the future or the past. You know. Like,
boy, you just dropped a huge truth, but I never even thought of it that way, and you just perfectly said it. Those books feel like they were made to replicate a story, and then there are settings that are made just to replicate the world. And I gravitate towards the ones that replicate a world.
Yeah.
But the ones that go to the story, I like to read them or I like to know about them, but I never feel like I can play in those. So the other one, I realize now, because you said that, that's why I'll never do Critical Role. The Critical Role campaign books, to me, are a campaign about the story and the show that they did. It's not about the world that they're in. For whatever reason, it comes off that way to me. Maybe not to other people. Lord of the Rings would come off that way. This Dragonlance one comes off to me that way. Sometimes Eberron is
it's
a
funny
little bit
because
that way to me.
the Dragonlance books were pretty decent. And I wonder if that's the problem. Like, the early Forgotten Realms books were like, I don't know, but like you got enough of it. But also Wizards of the Coast really like shaped Forgotten Realms to be a place of like possible adventures. It's like, so if you go to this region, it's like, here's the geopolitical blah, blah, blah of this region and things like that.
And the number of authors that were allowed to write about things in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
Versus articles, books, adventures in the game, whatever it was. There were just so many people that were allowed to put creative input into this world, and you can take and choose from that. Whereas Dragonlance is really those two authors, right? The Lord of the Rings to me is Tolkien. I don't even think about, his son who came on and finished, but it's still just a Tolkien story. Eberron is, really Keith Baker's story. There's not a lot of people writing, Eberron fictional books and articles.
There were multiple authors. Yeah, there were multiple authors when they were making Eberron books, but I would argue that like Eberron was a setting first. It wasn't meant to have.
It's the closest. That's why I said it's only there, because he's probably bridged that gap better than anybody else. Yeah. Whereas I don't feel like it's a story, but it's very close to feeling like it's a story or it's a history book.
And the difference, I think, you have Matt Mercer has told a story in his world, and Keith Baker has probably told many stories in his world, but he hasn't published them. You don't listen to Keith Baker actual plays. You don't, like he was very much about making the world accessible for other people. And a lot of his articles and stuff are about that, And Matt Mercer, I'm sure, is the same way. He wants to make it accessible. But, the Wildmount game that I played in, it was like, we ran into Pumot and stuff. And I think I wouldn't want that either. If I was playing Forgotten Realms, I'm like, I don't want to run into Dritz. Like, I want to meet, like, the current Blackstaff in Waterdeep. But, like, it doesn't, like, that's a title that changes. It's like, oh, no, this person's now the Blackstaff, or this person's now the Lord of Neverwinter or something. Which, I'm going to jump ahead, kind of ties into the movie that's coming out. So we have this Forgotten Realms D&D movie. And on Amazon, it just kind of popped up that there are these 2 tie-in novels. They're prequel novels to the movie. Seems like a very Wizards of the Coast thing to do. They're kind of aimed at teen, young adult fiction. So I think it's going to be like a very accessible novel for... They want to get all these people, like, if you want more knowledge of the Forgotten Realms, here you go. With that, I was wondering if we're going to start having like major Forgotten Realms canon, and like new adventures are going to have Chris Pine's character running around in them, kind of a thing. If I wonder if the movies are going to create a bunch of canonical characters and events that people will expect to have in their games, And maybe this is the problem that the Forgotten Realms has always had, because I hear people like, I hate running the realms because so-and-so read 40 novels and they think they know more than me. But it's like, in my version, none of those things have happened. And that's something that I like about the realms, is I'm like, you make it your own. But you're right. If you have that guy at the table that's like, but in the movie, the dragon's dead. And you're like, well, I'm bringing him back. I don't know. Yeah. So that's interesting to think about. Like, is the realms going to be ruined in a way? I shouldn't say ruined, but you know what I mean.
Well, even just the design philosophy that must have went behind it, because one, you're sitting there and like when you did your Building a World 365-day video series, you took parts and you weren't building from a story that had been told. You were just like, there's this thing that says what are rivers and lakes and water like? What is weather like? What is this thing like? What is the structure like? What are the different groups of people and stuff like that? but it was just a geography book versus
not even
when I think
geography,
they do,
just or
you know,
even
Lord
like
of the
this is what the
Rings.
city's like. This person came to power
Yeah.
because of X. Now what? You know, like
Yeah.
I think the best campaign settings are things that are just like, here's conflict, because
Right.
that's what your players are there to tell the story. You just need
Yeah.
conflict for them. So.
But if we were sitting at the table and they said, okay, you know, Lucian and Jordan, you got to build we're going to let you guys do the 5e version of Lord of the Rings, we can't but help think about, well, the hobbits and what's going on in the Shire now. Where are the rings and the ring race? What are we going to do with the you know, the orcs and the dwarves, and you know, where's the Balrog right now? We got to figure out what the Balrog, because you just can't not think about the story. Like, so you're building it from that. You're not building it from the world, like, say, okay, well, here's, you know, this world, but what about all the other stuff across the ocean? Where do the elves go? What does that look like? You know, where's all that spot? What is those kind? Where are this island chain or stuff? You just don't think about that. I don't think so. It's interesting. I think that's probably the hesitation between some books for me and not. Which ones? And it's totally my perception. These books could be written completely different, and had I read them, maybe they are as open and as cool
For Dragonlance,
as like any
you
other
mean?
book. For any of the others. But I'm perceiving that stories there as a barrier for me to go and say, oh, I really want this one. I have to have it on my shelf versus, you know, Ravnica, I really wanted. Ravnica was one of those ones that, because my brain just exploded with possibilities when I thought about the Ravnica guilds and this large planet-spanning city world that has guilds fighting within it. And you put the color aspects in there, and it's tied in a little bit with the Magic the Gathering and the artwork. And, you know, my brain just exploded with possibilities. I was like, I want that. This is so cool. I can.
That's
do
a great
stuff with
point.
this.
Like, Magic the Gathering settings actually make great campaign settings when you think about it that way, because there's no story, like, or very little story. Like, I know they come out with little blurbs about, like, here's what's happening in Theros, but like that's more
It's more like
flavor.
a plot hook.
Like,
it's not a story. Yeah.
And there's a reason, like, people like Ravnica probably because it has like endless possibilities. Yeah. And so it's funny that we're kind of down on them a lot. We, as a D&D thing, they're like, oh, another Magic the Gathering setting, bring back Dark Sun or bring back Spelljammer, you know. But I still love Theros, because I could take that whole thing and call it, you know, Jordan's Greek adventure, and it doesn't have to be about the actual Theros at all. Like, I just like that a bunch. And so maybe that's what I like about it as a dungeon master. So, but then thinking about other things, like I would love to play a Star Trek game. Like, we talk about our Star Trek game all the time. And that's a universe I want to play in, but I also feel like
There's
yes, we can say, you know, Kirk and Spock and Picard and Janeway, those all happened, but like, I could literally go off in this direction, and it's like, no, there's a whole other story with this ship I'm going to create. And I don't feel constrained by them. I also, you know what, they could run into the Enterprise. They don't need to. Like, I don't know. So it's maybe, man, this is a big topic of conversation that my mind is going a mile a minute.
I think the difference is they've proven through their stories that you can tell any story in Star Trek, because you can tell a story where everybody stays at a space station.
Oh, that's a great way to say it. You're right.
You can tell a story where you're far flung into a brand new galaxy that you never knew existed, Voyager. You can tell a story about how the burgeoning empires are coming together and there's a lot of diplomacy going on, Next Generation. You could tell a story about how warp started, you know.
Yeah.
You know, just
you're right. You can tell, and not that you
different
can't tell
universes.
multiple stories about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But we never
we haven't seen one yet.
We haven't
We haven't
seen
been
that.
given something
Yeah.
else.
You know, we haven't seen a lot of
Given that
Lord of the
permission
Rings.
to do it. Yeah.
Like multiple characters going on different adventures, having
That's so good.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I was comparing Lord of the Rings in my mind to Eberron, and how in Eberron we don't know what the Day of Mourning was, like this cataclysmic thing. So there's still this thing. And I think Lord of the Rings could be like that if it's like, if you said, here's this world and the ring's still out there and we don't know where it is. You know, maybe it's because like the evil was destroyed, but like if it's like the history of Sauron and all this stuff, and then he was destroyed, and it's 1,000 years later, you're now playing in this world where there's orcs running around, evil's on the rise, nobody knows where this ring is, and you're like, oh wow, that could be really cool. But it had that, you know, monumental, like if the entire And then the elves left and stuff like that. So I'm like, where do you go with that? I guess I don't know. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Wow,
That's
good conversation.
interesting.
In other news, we have a AAA D&D game happening.
Yeah, so the guys that did Dark Alliance, they had a studio that is gearing up or ramping up for their next game. They said it's going to be a AAA D&D game. They're bringing in, they're going to be staffing up to a much bigger studio, so it sounds like it's going to be a much bigger game. And they're bringing in people that came from like Ubisoft and some of these other big open world games that are leading people to believe that maybe it might be an open world action RPG kind of game, a la something like The Witcher or, you know, Horizon Dawn or, you know, Kratos and his thing, God of War.
God of War,
that's this big action-packed open world kind of thing, which I think
because that's the new open world is the
that.
new MMO kind of not in the
Solo
literal
play,
sense, but
but version of it.
It's the new buzzword, I feel, open world,
Elden
where people
world,
are like,
yeah,
oh yeah,
Elden.
Breath of Wild, open world, blah blah blah. And boy, Dungeons and Dragons would lend itself really well to that, I feel.
Yeah,
because
just
there's
all the
monsters everywhere,
the
especially if there's like
environments,
little
Magic
bit of
items.
online play where it's like Lucian can jump in with his wizard and I've got my ranger and we go, you know, take out a couple goblins for a little bit. Like that could be
drop
really
in,
cool.
drop out, campaign play, and then a good story that you're following. You have a world where you can have gear and equipment that you can be constantly striving for your dopamine hit of, oh, I got the cool sword or this cool cloak or whatever, and your character has the ability to rank up. So it's a perfect world for video game, which is obviously many video games were based off of. You know, they got to play Dungeons and Dragons, and those kids and programmers went and built games that you could play that were like Dungeons and Dragons, starting with text, because all they had was text-based commands and moving it right up into, you know, 2D, 3D, VR is coming, you know, all that stuff. So into the thing. So it's a perfect world for it. I think it's a great thing. I'm interested to see it. I would love to see something that has the high quality of like a Horizon Zero Dawn, Gods of War, Breath of the Wild is another good example. That crisp type of gameplay and movement and expansive world to explore, and then put all that in the D&D close of character classes and items and stuff from the Forgotten Realms and places you could go. I'd love it if they did the whole Sword Coast area and you could just, I mean, it was like a big swath.
I could walk from Icewind
really
Dale to
give us all of Cholt, or give us
Thea or
all of some
something,
big area that would be cool. Here's Myth Draenor, the big giant city that sits out there that nobody, you know, that's this ruin now.
full of demons.
Have at it, and it's huge and it's miles long, and you know it takes forever to go through.
I will say it's funny because it's the same studio that did Dark Alliance, which visually was pretty, but like did not do well game wise.
I don't think did very well. I think
I didn't really like it. I tried playing it a couple times, and I'm like, I'm really glad that I got a stream key for this and didn't buy it. So
yeah, it was a game to me that felt like it would be really fun with people playing with me, but I didn't have as much fun when I was playing alone.
Well, and I had friends that played it alone and really liked it, but they got to a certain point where you have to have other people help you. And so they're like, I can't finish the game. And I'm upset by that they're forcing me to play with a bunch of people. And I was like,
you have to have people.
That's
maybe that's Dungeons and Dragons though. You can't really.
But
play
that
by
is
yourself, can you, Jordan?
I guess so. I don't know. And then speaking of all this, there's a little bit of buzz with there's new leadership for Wizards of the Coast, the D&D division, and it's interesting because Ray Winnegar is gone apparently from his position as head of the D&D brand. And nobody's talked about this. There hasn't been an official like, hey, we'll miss you, Ray, or hey, Ray's leaving. All of these new articles coming out are about Cynthia Williams, who is the new head of it, and Ray is gone, but we don't know why. And I was talking about it with some people that it could be, you know, I don't wish bad ill on anybody, but somebody was saying like, well, what if he has a deadly illness and he's like, you know, I kind of just want to like live my life peacefully. I'm going to back out and I've got 6 months left or something. Because I've seen that happen where people just kind of quietly leave work and it's like, oh, he found out that he didn't catch his cancer early enough or something, and that's really sad. And so I don't want to say like, oh, Wizards is being awful and they're like kicking him out for whatever reason and they're bringing her on because they're money grubbing or things like that. There's a lot of that talk kind of going around in circles, but it is weird because I really liked Ray. He was really transparent. He was awesome. He loved the brand. He was super excited about it. And this new person, Cynthia Williams, she brought Amazon fulfillment from like a weird startup subsection of Amazon to the full thing that it is Nen. And then she left Amazon fulfillment and went to Xbox Gaming for Microsoft and did a similar thing. And now she's head of the D&D brand. And we have to also understand that although Cynthia is head of the brand, she doesn't necessarily care about D&D. She cares about D&D making money, because it was always like, how do I make Xbox make money? How do I make Amazon make money? And that's why they're bringing her in, because they're trying to make shareholders happy. And she's probably going to do a really good job at making the brand make money. I don't know what that means for us who want the brand to go in a more artistic, different direction. I think there will always be books, but we were speculating a couple days ago if we'll see like a big push for digital, which we already are seeing, and then you're going to get to the point where it's like, okay, well, the physical book comes out, you know, I'm going to say like November 1st, but you can get it 2 weeks early on D&D Beyond and really push the weird subscription and buying mechanic on D&D Beyond as opposed to getting a physical book. And then what we saw with Spelljammer is that, you know, book comes out, a lot of people backlash against certain stereotypes in it, which is a good thing to do, but they eroded the book within 2 weeks of it coming out, and now D&D Beyond is up to date, but my book isn't, and it's like, why? Is that fair? I don't know. Really, really weird. Yeah, D&D Lego is a thing that's coming out. I don't know if you saw that, but D&D is partnering with Lego to create I don't know, like they want the fans to tell Lego what we want, basically.
Yeah, I see like
and
Lego is
it's not a contest, but it's like, what do you want Lego to do? And they're like, I will see what the fans say. But there's hey, we're gonna do something together. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know anything about Cynthia Williams. I actually watched a Forbes video on her because they were advertising like, look how much money D&D is gonna make. It's gonna be the next Harry Potter, is what they were talking about, because they're putting it into words for executives to be like, oh, I should invest in Hasbro, you know.
Yep. The board and investing.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, I don't know, but really curious about Wizards of the Coast and D&D and its future, and I hope Ray is doing well, because I liked him a lot.
I looked at his Twitter account, and the only thing it says is game designer, opinionated GM. And that was it. And I don't remember if it said anything before, but I think it did.
It did. And that's one of the clues that people are seeing, is because it specifically said like head of Dungeons and Dragons at Hasbro, blah, blah, blah. But now it's just like he's stripped all that away, and it's kind of like, okay.
And been pretty quiet. I looked at his tweets and stuff, because I used to.
It's been over a month or so since he's tweeted. Yeah. So I hope he's okay. But I really liked him as the brand runner. I thought
I liked that he gave us insight, and he would give us hints and little spoilers and things, and that was cool. You know, kept us engaged in the off times of keep an eye out for this, or here's some hints of this stuff, and that was cool. So.
The other thing, news-wise, the Spelljammer minis are finally coming out, and
you've been wanting these for a while.
I contacted WizKids and said, hey, and I pestered them at Gen Con and said, hey, I want to make a video about ship combat. This was before the books came out, so I didn't really know. They arrived a couple days ago. Oliver has already broken one. I have a dragon that has a broken wing, and I'm like, did you step on this? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, we're not proud of that, buddy. Like, you snapped its wing in half. I have to figure out how to fix this now. But he's two, so it's fine. They look really good. And I'm going to build a map, and I'm revising some of like Jordan's homebrew rules for spelljamming combat, ship combat. And I'm going to make a whole video. It's going to take a while, but I'm really excited, and these minis are cool. So be on the lookout for that.
Could you use the vehicle rules from Descent to Avernus?
Oh, you absolutely could, but I want to modify them. Like, how do you do it with a Spelljammer? Because the rules in Descent into Avernus are like you have a pilot, but you're adding souls to the thing to make it go faster and stuff. And I kind of want to adapt those into. I'm not going to publish anything. This is not something you buy. The video will be free, and
Gotcha.
Jordan's ideas of how to run Spelljammer. But I just want to make it more cool and like have all of the crew have a job, not just the pilot. Which currently it's the pilot has a job, and that's what it feels like. So. But I'm excited because I have all these ship minis, and I can like make the video using the ship minis, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So that is my future plan. Boy, we have Paizo stuff. What is going on in the world?
Well, I decided to put a bunch of Paizo. We hadn't been around for a week or two, and Jordan hadn't jumped in and updated any notes yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much news. No, but I know we do have a sizable Paizo group that listens to the show, and I think it's growing. I think there are more and more people, and I think Paizo's on the upswing. The Pathfinder, Starfinder community, I think, is definitely a growing community. They're not, stagnant by any means. So one thing that's cool for those, Starfinder, they are doing the hardcover release of the Dead Suns compilation, which is when they released Starfinder, they had an adventure path, and it was a 6-part series of adventures that kind of launched Starfinder when they announced it. This is the original campaign they came out with, and it's a pretty galaxy-spanning campaign, and it has lots of cool stuff in it. It's about an alien super weapon that suddenly appears somewhere, and then all these different races and factions are vying to try to find it and gain that power to have it so that they can have that super weapon, and your adventurers are part of that in some way, and it's just all bound in a big 600-page book now. It's like huge book that they're putting out. You can buy it as a hardcover with a nice kind of faux leather, I think is what they called it, with a cool symbol on the front that looked really cool. It looks very interesting to me. I love the idea of their large campaign books that they put out. And we were talking about when they put them together in like a compilation, like we always want, those big anthology of books where they bring all that stuff together. We talk about Matt Colville's stuff.
I
want an anthology of
Arcadia anthology like
stuff.
now.
Yeah.
I'm so
cool.
upset that it doesn't exist.
And they're also going to put out with that a companion, so that's the first Starfinder Adventure Path all in one, which seemed really cool.
Oh, cool. Zris says they're running it right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I flipped through it at the game store and it looks really good. Then they're bringing out Pathfinder, which was their big, super popular Pathfinder 1E adventure path that's now in a big compendium book, but this compendium book is updated for Pathfinder 2E, the second edition of Pathfinder, and there's a 5E edition if you want to run the Kingmaker adventure path through the 5E edition. And they're putting out a companion guide, which is another 120 pages already on top of this large book of NPCs you can use, optional camping rules, downtime activities, and weather rules that all help add more flavor to running a Kingmaker campaign, if you wish. And this is one they built a game off of that's been pretty beloved. And even though most people are now onto the Wrath of the Righteous game, and that one's even more loved than the other one, it was cool that there's still a lot of nostalgia for the Kingmaker campaign. A lot of people have said really good things about that campaign. So if you want to play it in your rules of choice, or adapt it to, you want to jump into Pathfinder 2E, you want to jump into 5E to do it, or you just want to play the original rules and you can go through it and play it. So I thought that was pretty cool to see them. And then there was one other thing I saw on their webpage that many of you might go look at. They did an article where they gathered all of the feedback for the Kineticist class. That's the next class they're going to be releasing. They did a playtest for it, and they released some really cool information. They got 1,000 surveys back on the dot. So normally they say they don't say how many they get, but because it was like right on that number, they thought it was just funny and we got 1,000 returns. And then they talk about the feedback they got, where they want to go, where they heard there were problems, where they heard it was strong, where it was weak, what they want to do with it. They put some charts in there. They added some more pieces. And so it was a really nice look behind the curtains, behind the screen of the design, and them taking the feedback and then saying, okay, we've got good feedback. Now let's start making some changes and doing some things based on that feedback, which is the stuff that we as fans always want with our developers when they ask for it. If you're going to ask for our feedback, it's great to see, all right, we got a bunch of this feedback. They said they don't like this thing or they do like this thing. let's make that a little. One thing that came out, they put this kineticist out with low damage numbers. So they did the opposite of what Wizards of the Coast did. Wizards of the Coast throws something out, and it's a little overpowered knowing they're going to dial it back.
Yeah.
They went underpowered. They got that feedback, and they're going to start dialing theirs up. They said, we're going to carefully start moving the damage up for this class.
I
thought that was an interesting philosophy, too.
What is the flavor of the kineticist? Like, is it a psionic kind of character? Or what's its deal?
Yeah, it's like manipulating elements in the world, but you're not using magic. You're directly manipulating them.
Kind of like a mutant power or something, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. Like I don't. Did I have the thing open? That no, I must have closed that window where they kind of described the exact kineticist piece of it. But it was like they're really careful, and that was one of the feedback things. Is they said make sure when you're describing this class that you remove the stuff that mentions or makes you think spell casting. Because this is a different way of manipulating just raw elements. And I think you pick elements because they were talking about in the bottom of that article, it showed like, here's the metal element and here's another element that they hadn't shown before. They had stuck with just, earth, fire, air, and water in the first play testing thing for manipulating stuff. So I think it's just a raw manipulation of elemental energies and then conforming them in ways to do things. So I didn't go through the whole thing yet. I'm barely still learning about the Pathfinder 2e normal classes. I haven't even jumped into what they're future testing at this point. So eventually I'll get to that and see what that's all about too. But that's what it looked like to me. So I was thinking more of like maybe like an airbender, an Avatar airbender. A little shout out to what's coming up later in my discussion. But it's like that, like a bending of elements, or I didn't get like,
or a Full Metal Alchemist, like taking this material and using it in a different way or something.
Yeah, or even like Magic the Gathering in some ways, where you're taking, a specific mana style type or thing and you're using it to do that. That might be a better thing than like a spell or a ritual.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was psionics, which is what I thought when I saw kineticist. I was thinking mind bullets, but maybe that's not what it is. Maybe somebody in chat knows a little bit better, but you guys can put it in the comments if we're way off. I'll have to go back and look at it. So it sounds interesting, though. It sounds
that's
very
cool.
Interesting. So that's our Paizo update. They're still rocking and rolling, moving forward. They put a lot of good content on their YouTube channel and on their webpage. So if you're ever trying to find more information out, they're really good about saying what's coming up, doing articles, doing live streams, playing games, that whole thing. So they're definitely good to look for more information, just like Wizards of the Coast when you're trying to find more information to keep, what's coming up next? What do we get next? So they're on the rise.
That's fun.
It's very cool. And I was super excited. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to jump ahead, but we should talk about Magic the Gathering. Go ahead.
Just for a second at least. Yeah, the Magic the Gathering, they did finally put out the Warhammer 40k Commander decks are out now. They were out on Friday, I believe, and I haven't gone and got one yet because I'm trying to find a game store where I can play them that are playing Commander decks. So I found that there's another 2 different game stores in my town that I didn't know about. So I'm going to go to those after our show and see if they're doing Commander deck nights or something, because I really want to play this format, but it takes 4 people to play a Commander game as far as I understand it.
I think so.
I looked it up. Magic the Gathering, the Arena, they have something that is a 2-player 100-card deck mode that is a little bit like a Commander deck, but it doesn't have the 4 players and it doesn't have, these specific Commander decks, so it's not necessarily the same. And other than that, the only place else that you could play it is there's something called Magic Online, Magic the Gathering Online is another program that's different than Arena, and I didn't realize that that's out there, so I might go check that out and see if you can play Commander deck stuff there, which might be pretty cool.
I don't know. That's interesting.
So I want to find a place to play it before I go buy them, because these decks are typically more expensive than your typical Magic the Gathering pack that you might buy. If you buy some boosters, it's usually not too expensive relatively. Or you might buy
I went and got one of the Commander decks for the Forgotten Realms because I was curious.
Yeah, my Baldur's Gate one,
and they're only like $30 or something. Like I think for the 100 cards.
Yeah, that bundle was more than $30. I thought it was like a $50 buy.
No. I'm talking about a Commander deck.
Yeah, that's what that Baldur's Gate Commander deck right there.
Oh, that was $100.
Commander Legends. I thought it was $100.
Oh,
I thought it was like,
okay.
or like $59 or $60. It was. I felt like it was expensive.
Well, never mind. I guess
Price
I don't
check
know.
me. Price check.
Command-
Maybe I'm wrong, and it's way less than I thought, and I should just go buy a bunch of them.
But yeah, that's a bit much. But if you're not going to be able to use it,
Yeah. Well, where do you buy your cards at? Your comic book store, I assume.
I go to my game store. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, Commander deck, $37. That's on Amazon, but like.
Oh, well, that's not as bad as I
But
thought.
I don't know. Maybe this is an older one. I don't know. This one's a Commander that's $40. So, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't play that. I just play on Arena nowadays.
Yeah. Here
I was
and there.
I did make a deck the other day to take over to DM Nathan's. We were gonna play Magic the Gathering, but the time wise it didn't work out. So. Someone in chat says we're both right. Sadly, apparently Commander decks can fluctuate quite a bit. So.
Oh, that's what I was seeing then. It was just a really expensive one that I looked at.
There was a little bit. Well, this kind of went under my radar too, so I just wanted to talk about it because I know Roll20 and the company that owns Drive-Thru RPG, which is One Bookshelf. I always get confused, but One Bookshelf owns DMsGuild, Drive-Thru RPG. The comic book one, they have like Drive-Thru Comics. They have a whole bunch of these drive-thru ones. And they kind of have a monopoly. Like there's itch.io, there's a couple other places you can buy PDFs, but like Drive-Thru RPG for as far as like indie RPG or non-D&D PDFs, it's a pretty I've heard people in the industry complain about them being a monopoly, that you can't make money unless you go through Drive-Thru when you should be able to, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They announced that DMsGuild material was going to be like integrated with Roll20, but I found out a couple days ago that Roll20 and One Bookshelf, Drive-Thru RPG, have straight up merged. They are now the same company, and that's interesting to me. So hypothetically, a lot of your Drive-Thru purchases should be working through Roll20 now. Well, not integrated. It's still up to the author to make it work. Yeah. But it's all going to be, it's under one company, which I thought was really interesting. So now you have the most popular VTT and the most popular PDF RPG source as one company. It's kind of interesting to see what's going on there. So
yeah,
I
don't see anything on their website that says anything about it yet.
Well,
that's an interesting thing because it ties into a little bit about what I was going to talk about is that I got in an email, jumping ahead just a little bit, Avatar Legends, which was the Kickstarter we did for, The Last Airbender, Avatar Legends, the role-playing game. They sent me in the email the digital downloads and all the PDFs. If I want to download the printable copies, they sent me a link to Drive-Thru RPG. But they also sent me free codes because their game is on Nexus, and I can play all the stuff use Nexus to do all the books. They're going to have a character creator in 2023, and I can already get to them, and they look really nice and high quality over on Nexus. Nexus is growing bigger and bigger, and that's the demi-plane Nexus sites that Brad went to, that we all know from original D&D Beyond. So it's interesting how it's all kind of tying together.
Yeah, they merged. I sent you a link in our chat, and I'll put it in our chat as well. But it's
that's good. I love Roll20, so I'm happy for them to.
Well, and I think it feels kind of one of those desperate like, we better do something before Wizards of the Coast does this, because they're gonna pull. I wonder if like new books won't be available on Roll20. Maybe they will, but who knows?
Yeah, they'll probably still license
because
money.
D&D is they're making their own VTT. They've got D&D Beyond now, so it's like okay,
that's kind of interesting.
In the world of Dungeons and Dragons, we had a great Modron March game. I prepped for the result of that game, but we did not get to play. Then I went to Seattle. Then people were also sick and at weddings, so we haven't played.
You did one session so far.
We've done 2 sessions so far.
Oh, 2 sessions, okay.
And it's kind of like, wow, start up a new show and then don't make episodes. Like, good job, Jordan. But that's what's happening. But I'm pretty sure we're gonna play this Thursday. I'm excited to play D&D again.
we are getting into the season of people staying closer to home and having lots more nights available versus the summertime when
and it was like
going on
it was just random
COVID.
things. Like one was a family emergency, the other was a wedding. Like I'm like, no, life comes first, guys. Like it's not, you're not getting paid for this. And even if you were getting paid for this, I'd be like, go take care of your family stuff. Like it's fine. Black Company game is going really well. I should have my new magic item tomorrow when I arrive. I'm very excited. Nice. I wonder if you've ever done this as a DM, but DM Nathan said you guys can pick a rare or lesser item to get made as a reward. And so we like went through and it's like, oh, well, I want this magic item. And they're like, okay, well, it'll be ready after this adventure because they have to like make it. And so you kind of commission items. And I really like that. I usually roll randomly or hand out items I think is cool, but it's really fun as a player, I'm realizing, to be like, oh, I've always wanted this one because I think it augments this really well, you know? And so have you done that? Like,
I think I've done what you said is the former. I've created some cool things for players that are specific to them and work with their class or their storyline that they're kind of going through. And I will sometimes like get some of their input a little bit on it too. But I do like the idea of what you're talking about. Like give them the option to say, if you want to build something, we could make a downtime adventure out of it, or even a side story adventure out of, well, you need this so that this crafter can make this thing that you want. Yeah. That you're not going to get immediately, but over time and over enough time, you know, you're going to be able to build this thing. You're going to be like, oh, I want this sort of sharpness that does this. Okay, well, you're going to have to gather some of these things for the crafter.
Yeah.
Started. I think that'd be a cool idea. Very cool idea.
Yeah, and that's another fun way to do it where you're like, yeah, but and maybe when we start getting into very rare or like legendary, I guess, what's the one after that, like the higher ups, it will be like, if you want this item, I'm gonna need the heart of a Tarrasque or something. And you're like, okay, like that would be cool,
like a named one, like a specific
wouldn't that be neat? Like I think that's a lot of fun. It's been adding a fun because we have our story, but then we're also a company. And so it's like you want to better yourself and better the company. And so we're kind of going through that.
Yeah, it always seems to come up when they kill something pretty... Like, there was a point where they killed a black dragon, and they got some scales from it. So the moment they got some black dragon scales, my players were immediately like, what can we make out of this? Can we make armor? Can we make a shield? So one of the guys made a shield that had stuff on it. And that's when I think those talks kind of come up. So they kill something really cool. They're thinking, wait a minute, can I use this for some cool thing? And then having cool crafting rules, I think, is really fun and really... There's lots of awesome third-party stuff that people have made for crafting rule stuff, too. So if you're looking for... I mean, if you have your own inspiration, that's great. If you don't have your own inspiration, you're looking for stuff. I know Drive-Thru RPG had a ton of... Here's crafting rules for harvesting stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of...
And then turning it into cool armor or cool weapons.
And speaking of that, I got a Kickstarter came in of the Herbalist Primer. And this is not necessarily monster crafting, like killing monsters, but it's like you could still... There's a lot of rules in here to like make potions and different effects of real magical plants remedies. and magical plants. And it's a super quality book. Like it's so good.
We need like Dust of Forgetfulness. And
Dust my gosh, it's awesome.
Like all these little... Cool things.
So this is something that I want to be like a fun in-game item. I'm not really sure how to utilize this today, but I got this in the mail and I was very excited. I'm always excited when I get my Kickstarters in the mail.
Yeah, I got one myself.
And then I bought this one recently, which I just thought was really cool, called the Sun's King Palace. And I just like the art on the cover. But it's a pretty simple dungeon crawl. There's just it's made for the OSR, but you can kind of incorporate it however you want. But there's a palace that exists at the bottom of this ocean or something, and it's called the Sun King's Palace. And so this is something that you could be like, yeah, I could just put this in my world. And I thought that was really cool. And then this came out, and I don't know, I got a Wizard of Oz adventure source book for 5e, but is very OSR compatible. This same author and artist, he does it all. He did a Neverland one, Neverland 5e, that was really cool. And this is his sequel, is Wizard of Oz. And this is really awesome. Lots of maps and cool worlds and stuff. I probably, I would love to do a actual, review of this on the channel at some point. Because I love the Wizard of Oz books. Like, I've read a lot of them. And so aside from the movie, the books are continued. There's like 9 or 10 books. I've only read like 3 or 4, but the world is really goofy. I mean, it's just fun. And so to have like, oh, I could just run a quick little adventure in the Emerald City or the Land of Oz or something is kind of cool. And the production quality on that book is great. So those were the new arrivals that I was very excited about. The last thing I want to talk about before I turn it over to you is Kids on Bikes is doing a 2nd edition.
I saw that.
There's a Kickstarter right now for it. It doesn't look like they're adding a lot, but if you wanted to grab a great version of Kids on Bikes, this is probably the one to grab, because it's going to have additional rules and a fun hardcover, and some extra zines and stuff will come out with it. There are some really cool writers that are working on it as a stretch goal. One of them is Banana Chan, and I think I like her she does a lot of really cool stuff. And then there was, I think, what's her, the girl that did the Critical Role. She ran Critical Role for a little while. I forget her name. Aubrey, not Aubrielle, but Abria? Is that what I'm thinking? Yeah, she's one of the stretch goal people too, where she's going to write like an adventure or something. So lots of cool people working on it. Kickstarter, Kids on Bikes 2nd edition. I'm curious if it's going to be like a super revised everything, like a true 2E, or is it just we made improvements and we're reprinting the book. So but what has been going on in the world of Lucian?
Well, the world of Lucian got his Kickstarter in called WotC.
What is that?
Let me just give you the core concepts of this, Jordan. Tell me if you want to play. The treetops are a sea. So this planet is covered in forests that are so thick that ships are made to float on the tops of the treetops.
That's cool.
And it's hard to get down and underneath. The land is scarce and valuable. There's no real solid land because everything's covered in trees, giant trees that grow. Plant growth is rampant, so fast that you can't keep up with it. There's nothing that allows you to stop it from growing fast enough. Open flames are forbidden in the world.
If you wanted to watch the world burn, yeah, that's crazy.
Yep. Crezarine corrupts on contact, whatever Crezarine is. The economy is barter-based, and it's a weird, weird world. And just one thing to give you kind of a cool thing, they have a picture of the layers of the sea, which is actually a forest, and they have the different layers. So at the top, you have the skies. That's where the adventures take place and where you are. On the actual leaves themselves is called the thrash, the topmost layer of the forest sea.
Okay.
If you get below that is the tangle. If you get below that, it's the sink. Below that's the drown. And if you get all the way down to where the roots are, that's the darkness under the eaves. And that's where this world takes place. And it just shows it's a world that's covered in rampant forest and growth. And then they have really cool character art, and the whole book has been done in a really great.
Is this 5e or is this its own system, or?
This one is its own system. This one is not 5e.
That's cool though.
But it is a really cool kind of. Yeah, they talk about the dice that you'll use, the character sheet, that kind of thing. You're kind of based off of a ship they call Firefly. And there are different ships that have chainsaws on the bottom of them, and they cut through the top of the trees as they make their trails, and they move around in these ships, and then they dive into where old forgotten things are and where materials and resources can be. And then, but things grow so fast that your trail behind you kind of grows behind you and stuff.
It sounds like Mortal Engines. Did you ever see that movie?
A little bit like, yeah. They have some cool stuff. They have really cool vehicle mechanics in here. They have really cool races that they talk about, and progression and play. And I just found the whole world super interesting because it just comes from that one sentence concept of, what if your world is completely covered with a forest, a giant canopy forest, that even though you try to cut down a tree today, it's already grown again by tomorrow. Like it just grows that fast that there's no way you can cut it down and clear out space. How do you live, or how does a society evolve around something like that. And I just thought, once I saw it, I backed it. I was like, this is
Oh, that's
so
a good
cool.
question. Are the characters plant-based? Like the creatures?
Some are.
Some are.
Some are mechanical based. Some are really different types of creatures you've never seen before. They went out. They just.
I've seen a lot, Lucian.
Yeah, just like not these things though.
Oh, okay,
These are
I mean,
going
I
to be
don't
new
know.
to you.
I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. So finally got it. The book is cool. I like how the book is like a different shape than normal too.
Until you put it on a shelf.
Fantastic. Yeah, because normally like a book would be like this.
Yeah. No, I love my Invisible Sun books. They do not shelf well, and
But
it's
they don't
frustrating.
shelf well. Yeah.
And I'm like, Money Cook.
Yeah, they use the Wild Words engine, is what I think they're using the mechanics of the game. So
Okay, that's cool.
I feel like this is probably more like maybe closer to an Empowered by the Apocalypse kind of thing. Oh, here you go. This kind
Nothing bad there.
I think this was one of the pictures of the ships that they had with the chainsaws on the bottom that made me go, okay, this is an interesting world. I got to try this thing out. So traveling and wave walking, and they have lots of terminology that they use that's different because of the way their world is compared to our world, and with the rustling of the leaves and the rustling of the. They still say there are waves. The way the wind interacts with the top of the trees, you still get waves in there, and your ships have to ride those waves out. And I was just thinking that's just such an interesting concept to run something. So it has me really, really jazzed to go and play this. There are lots of cool races in there. Let me see if I can pull out one real quick. So there is, let's see. Yeah, things like the Ridgebacks. They call them Origins. The Anchored are like, their bodies were claimed under the eaves, and now they are like a wispy kind of character. So they're like wisps that come into, they can make their body form into physical, but then it can go back to more of a ethereal. Amber clad, things that are clad in amber, their armor and their weapons are made from this amber that they can collect. There's something I can't even pronounce that's wood and machine, the Zelkere. They're a spider colony wrapped in humanist skins. Thousands of tiny arachnid minds threaded like beads on a string produce a full, rich sapience. So it's like a spider hive colony.
Yeah.
The Mothrin are like a moth kind of humanoid creature, 2 arms, 2 legs, and can fly.
Oh, there looks like there's a mushroom person. If
Ketra,
Silver Belay, if
like
you're interested.
the Ketra for like almost like a deep kind of like tentacles.
I was looking at the Shar.
Yeah, there you go. Ironbound are like your mechanicals. The Gao are like a wood-based fungal explorers gifted freedom by the rustling winds. So they're part of. How about an Ectus? This is the one you've never seen. Have you ever seen a cactus person, Jordan, in all your times?
Well, yeah, no, I haven't.
Gotcha. Then there's the Ardent, which are kind of like the humans, and lots of them. So they have cool classes in here and different names, and just a whole weird, cool world to try to figure out, and ships, and they have octopus people with things and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. They're actually, that's really cool. Well,
I thought
looks fun. I like it.
So that one came in, and I was excited. I haven't got to read through it yet. It's been sitting here next to me. I'm going to start reading through that one. That's really cool. I got my email for my access to Avatar Nexus, so I have all of that stuff. So if you guys haven't seen, this is Avatar Legends. It's the role-playing game that's going to allow you to play in any era of the Avatar world, the Avatar verse, as they call it. So if you want to Legends of Korra or the Last Airbender era, you want to play in those eras, you can. Has all the rules. It is based on Powered by the Apocalypse, so you have playbooks. And so like our Monster Hearts would be another example if you played that style of game where you have a playbook and you have plays and things like that, and it's very story-based, rich, kind of, you have ties to each of the characters that you're with. And I just started looking at that. The demi-plane piece looks really good.
This would be the coolest. Well, it is a cool thing by itself, but I was just thinking of like that tree world would be the neatest planet to land on in Spelljammer. You know,
yes.
Like why I was like, we need cool things like that for Spelljammer. Like that would be so fun. So
yeah, exactly. See, now you're gonna want it.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out. I was
going through that, and on Demiplane, I was noticing their other Nexuses they have kind of are active, Avatar Legends, the role-playing game. Pathfinder's out there, obviously. Multiverse, the role-playing game, which is the Marvel role-playing game they have out there that you can just kind of play test and play around with. Vampire the Masquerade. Alien, the Isolation, the role-playing game, which is one of my favorites right up here. And Mutant Year Zero, which is another one from Modifius, or Free League. Free League. That is another cool book. So those two I'm definitely interested in. I'm probably going to buy those compendiums so I have them because they all look really cool.
Yeah.
But these are high quality, well put together pages as reference to look up, just like a D&D Beyond, just like if you want to look up your Pathfinder rules, go to this Demiplane Nexus and really check out that stuff. I think it's really cool. The character builders are coming. They're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm. So I was talking with Lex a couple days ago. We played Hero Quest online.
Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah. So if you want to go to the Jocular Junction channel, I played Hero Quest with Lex and Ted, using like an iPad app, and it was a funny stream. We were talking about, I made a video a while ago about playing a D&D setting, but not using the D&D rules, like playing Eberron, but using Numenera. Like, wouldn't that be kind of interesting? And Lex was like, he recently played the Alien Roll20, or the Alien RPG that's behind you. He recently played it, and he's like, I want to run Curse of Strahd Ravenloft, but using that system because it's all like scared. And I was like, it blew my mind. I'm like, that would be the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah,
like,
that is all about tension and
exactly. And he's like, I think that system would make the Ravenloft game that he wants to run. And I was like, whoa. So anyway, Halloween, lots of cool stuff happening. But
the other thing I did this week, you might have noticed out on Twitter, is I backed Secret World. Have you ever seen or heard about Secret World, Jim?
I own Secret World on Steam. I have not played it, though.
It's an MMO that is fantastic.
I hear it's really good.
Try it. It's one of the only ones that's like a modern-day MMO. There are 3 secret organization factions that know about things that happen in the world that the regular public don't know about, right? Most of it's kept away so that the public doesn't panic or know that these things exist, but they sometimes bleed out and they sometimes have to be dealt with, and that's what this game is all about. Is they made an MMO on it, and it actually plays really fun. I even have some videos on my YouTube from way back when it was started. We loved this game because it really brings in all of your modern day myths and stories that we all think of just, it's all fiction, but in this world it's like it's real. It's just kept from everybody, and it's made to think like it's fake.
Like, there are vampires, but we keep you safe.
Run into a werewolf.
There are Cthulhu's, but mortal minds can't handle it, so we keep the population safe.
Yep. And that's exactly what this game is. It starts out with an incident that happens in a New York subway. You're told about the secret organizations that go and try to deal with these things and keep it away from the public.
Almost a Men in Black kind of thing too.
Yeah. So if you ever try it, it's actually really fun to go in. It might even be free to play at first. Like, they might have some type of pay, but it's like if you buy.
As far as I understand, I bought Secret World because it is free to play. Well, it's not free. You buy the game. There's no subscription. So,
right. Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah, there's no subscription.
I love it. It was cool because the aesthetics of it, the graphics of it are really cool. The gameplay is very MMO-like. You're running around doing quests, and sometimes they're gathering stuff. Sometimes they're killing 10 zombies or whatever it might be. And you're doing these, and there's a story that's going on through this. And the big first area you get to is in Maine, because a full-on Stephen King-like thing has happened there, and they've cordoned it off. But you're going in to figure out what's happened because a whole town has gone missing or has been cut off and nobody's heard from. And you got to go and figure out what's happened. And there's all kinds of cool little stories happening in there. You might find a Wendigo, or you might find things that have come from the ocean. There might be things that, just ghost stories or undead stuff's happening, or there's all these, orcs or fairies or goblins and all that stuff's there. And aliens could fall in. It's like everything could happen in this world. You can pick different classes and you pick how your abilities work and stuff. So I really liked it. They're bringing out a 5e version of this game. Jordan, I jumped on it like hotcakes for this. Cool. I love this game so much because
that's great.
Each of the factions, you have the Illuminati, the Dragon, and I think it's the Templars. So the Illuminati are in New York. the dragon is in Tokyo and the Illuminati's in London, and they all have their different feel. They're all very centric. So like it's very red and white for the Templars, and it's very green and cool for the dragons, and it's very blue for the Illuminati. And you can go through and they're fighting. Sometimes they fight each other. Sometimes they help each other. You know, it's very X-Files like. It's very Dresden like. It's very any of those shows where it's modern day and fantasy stuff exists, but most people don't know about it. So like even like I guess
like Vasons like that.
So. Yeah. So or like Supernatural would probably be another great example of it.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know.
If you love that stuff, this is the world for you. Secret World, because they grab from all of those things and a lot of pulp culture reference, like tons Stephen King references, and you know they went bananas on. Oh, there was this movie about a predator that goes around and stalks people. You know, it's in this game somewhere. You know, somebody put it in. So pop culture references all over. So I can't wait to see what the 5e version of this looks like. And I can't wait. I'm glad I kickstarted it. They're already.
Is that a mouse and keyboard type of game, or could you play it with a controller? Okay.
No, they probably do have controller support.
I'm wondering if I could play it on the Steam Deck. That would be fun.
I would give it a try. At least jump in and create your character. Just see what you think of that. That's pretty cool. So I thought that was really cool. Me and my friends, we played a lot of this game. We felt like we had found a game that a lot of people didn't gain a lot of popularity, but it was one of those gems that should have gained popularity.
Yeah,
it should
and the fan base was always really great about it. Like super awesome people. Yeah,
for the people
I love
that
stuff
knew
like
about
that.
it.
Yeah,
that are in the know, and it's good. It's a lot of cool stuff in there. It's got a lot of even like different stories from different groups too. So there's like a lot of indigenous or Native American stories are in there when you're in the America parts. But when you go to these other places of the world, you might get a lot of Japanese mythology, or you might get a lot of Egyptian mythology, or you might get a lot of these different areas that they would bring you in the world to do different things. So it was pretty cool to go through those and play that. And I'm glad I think it still exists. I think the servers are still up. I haven't been out there in a while. It's an older game, but it still held up the last time I was in it. And I can't wait to see what the 5e version of this looks like. So I'm excited. I backed it. And that was pretty much, other than that, I've been just playing a lot of World of Warcraft. I jumped back into that.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've been having a lot of fun. I'm playing it from just a story lore perspective, where I'm just reading the text and seeing where the story takes me and what's going on, and not really rushing through anything or have any specific goal in mind, just kind of reading what's there. And I found some really cool things, and things that have made me smile, and things that reminded me why World of Warcraft is still one of the best MMOs out there, because of some of the details they put in and some of the little things you come across and some of the big moments that you just did not see coming happen. And then it's just like, this is why I love these types of games. This is why I love playing an MMO, or this is why I love, God, that's so cool, that dinosaur popping up and doing this thing. And it was like, oh, this is so good. It was fun just to jump back and to have that being surprised at something, not knowing it's coming, having a big smile on your face because it's happening. You're like, what? Is this happening? Is this really going on? That kind of, there's a few of those moments in there still, so I love it. So that's been my day. I know we went over a little, but
it's okay. We haven't streamed. It's been a while, so. That's our show, guys. Thank you so much. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Jordan with a PH in the middle, JORPHDAN. You could also become a member on YouTube. All those things kind of helps us keep the light on. Other than that, just share the show with a friend. Leave us some comments. Tell us about your day. Lucian and I go through the comments on all the videos. It's lots of fun. And I guess with that, we'll be back next week because I'm home now. So this should be pretty more regular. But we'll be back next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching.